Hello and welcome to another episode of Legal Briefs. It's a Saturday morning for me, and as a child that always meant Schoolhouse Rock, so I apologize in advance if I'm about to destroy some of your childhood memories, but I'm going to comment on I'm Just a Bill by Schoolhouse Rocks, but with a 2021 update.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law.
Does the bill here remind anyone else of President Clinton? Okay. Let's start by addressing the idea that a congressman took a phone call from some constituents back home and then sat down and decided to write a law. That's not the way it happens nowadays. Most bills now are a response to a business interest or advocacy group. Although we can't really know for sure, nearly 12,000 lobbyists spent over $3.5 billion in an attempt to sway policymaking in 2019, and that wasn't really even a big election year. And what I can tell you for sure is that no one spends that kind of money with nothing to show for it. Now, how much was spent on lobbyists when I'm Just a Bill was made back in 1976? $100 million. Not much. And much of the spending nowadays comes from PACs or political action committees, which basically allow companies and large groups to funnel money to House reps and senators, and allows them to funnel more than they would legally be allowed to otherwise. So if this massive amount of lobbying and PAC contributions distorts our lawmaking process in the interest of those with organization and money, now why don't we pass laws to stop it? Well, the answer is we have, and most of the laws were struck down as a violation against free speech. For example, back in 2007, when Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the Democratic presidential nominee, a conservative nonprofit group released a documentary just before the election. Now, the documentary was really a hit piece against Clinton. Here's a short taste of it so you can see what I'm talking about.
She's driven by the power. She's driven to get the power. That is the driving force in her life.
And it just keeps going on and on like that. So the Elections Commission saw that and said, no, you can't release that because really that's just a political commercial against Clinton. And it ended up that there was a lawsuit, and that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which held in Citizens United v. FEC that companies can spend an unlimited amount of money on political advertising as it is protected speech under the First Amendment. And I think this is also the case maybe where the majority said corporations are people too, which Romney repeated sometime later, or something to that effect. In any case, obviously this ruling has significantly strengthened the influence and power of companies and interest groups to affect what our legislature does. And I think it's safe to say that our congressperson writing our little bill in 2021 is probably writing it with an eye toward a certain interest group and in order to get reelected. But our story continues.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will, but today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Did anyone else here get sad watching this as a kid? I sure did. Anyway, Schoolhouse Rock does get this committee part essentially correct. Congress has committees and subcommittees because the laws can be very complicated, and the idea is to gather congresspeople with knowledge and experience in each area so that when they talk about the bill, they know what they're talking about. Here's a list of all the different committees, and these committees have to pass a bill out of committee for it to even be seen and possibly voted on by Congress. There's an aging Committee, which is well attended. And there's the Ethics Committee, which is fairly lonely, I understand.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm gonna live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Okay, now things are really moving quickly, and that's all good for the 7-year-olds, but let's slow it down a little bit and give a little more explanation. Now, a bill that is passed out of the House then goes to the Senate, where the process starts all over again. It has to go through the Senate committee, it has to make it out of the committee alive, and then it has to get back to the floor for a vote in the Senate. Now, going into 2021, we have a Senate, thanks to the Georgia elections, that is equally divided 50-50. So what happens? Luckily for us, the U.S. Constitution has an answer. And I quote, "The Vice President of the United States shall be President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided." That's from Article 1 of the Constitution, which is kind of an old school way to say the Vice President breaks the tie. And now we see that indeed Kamala Harris is probably the most powerful politician in the world right now. Boom.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be along. How I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By
old.
that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No.
And certainly both President Obama and President Trump had a lot of frustration with hyperpartisanship in Congress and difficulties getting laws passed, which has led to the popularity recently of the executive order, as seen and explained by Saturday Night Live. Okay, executive orders are not quite that simple. The power of the president to make executive orders is contained in Article 2 of the Constitution. And on a very basic level, as you know, the legislature makes the laws, the judiciary interprets them, and the executive, the president, executes them or puts them into action. Now the question is, what are the limits to executive orders? Justice Jackson in the Youngstown case from 1952 kind of laid it out for us. When the president enacts something that Congress expressly empowered him to do, he or she can do almost anything to make it happen, and it's constitutional. But when acting directly against or without legislative intent, he must be acting within his own constitutional authority as president. So for example, President Truman created internment camps and forced U.S. citizens of Japanese ancestry into the camps by executive order back during World War II without authorization from Congress, but it was held constitutional under the president's inherent constitutional authority to protect the country's borders from an invasion, because at the time there was a theory that the Japanese were going to invade the West Coast, which of course later turned out to be false.
But how I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
He signed your bill, now you're a law.
Oh, yes.
What a happy ending for the bill. Remember, always in these next years, if you get frustrated and sad with the world, first look close. Changing the world begins with changing yourself.